In 1968, Britain owned one of the most respected truck manufacturers on earth. Leyland trucks had crossed deserts, supplied wars, and outlasted every rival. Then the government forced it into a merger it never asked for. Within 7 years, the profits were gone. Within 20, the great names were dead. But here is the part nobody talks about. Leyland's trucks were never the problem. There is a small town in Lancashire, in the north of England, called Leyland. For most of the 20th century, this town did not need an introduction. The trucks built here moved goods across Britain, across Europe, across Africa, and across Asia. The name Leyland, stamped on the front of a lorry, meant one thing above all others: reliability. The story begins in 1896. A man named James Sumner and his business partner Henry Spurrier formed the Lancashire Steam Motor Company in Leyland with 20 workers and a simple product, a 1.5-ton steam van. They took it to trials held by the Royal Agricultural Society in Manchester the following year. It won the top prize, a silver medal, beating every other vehicle on the course. That silver medal set the direction for the next 100 years. The company grew steadily, changed its name to Leyland Motors Limited in 1907, and kept building bigger and better trucks. The first export order came early, a steam mail van delivered to Ceylon, the island now known as Sri Lanka. Leyland was thinking beyond Britain from the very beginning. During the First World War, Leyland trucks carried supplies for British forces. The War Office had held trials in 1912 to decide which vehicles were reliable enough to receive government support. Leyland trucks were the only ones to pass in both weight categories, the Class A 3-ton and the Class B 30 hundredweight. No other manufacturer cleared both. The military ordered 88 chassis immediately. Britain's armed forces trusted Leyland before the wider public fully understood how significant the company was becoming. By the late 1920s, Leyland had done something unusual. It gave its trucks animal names: the lion, the tiger, the badger, the beaver, the hippo, the octopus, the buffalo. Drivers and hauliers across Britain began to talk about these trucks by name, not just by specification. The beaver was a powerful tractor unit. The octopus was an 8-wheeled rigid for heavy loads. The hippo handled the demanding work in between. These were not just names, they were characters. A generation of British lorry drivers grew up knowing exactly what each animal in the Leyland Zoo could do and trusting them to do it. The 1930s deepened the range. In 1933, Leyland put its own direct-injection diesel engine into production, ending its dependence on petrol power. The diesel gave Leyland trucks lower running costs, longer range, and more torque for heavy work. Competitors took note. The industry followed. When the Second World War began, Leyland turned its factories to military production. Between 1939 and 1945, around 11,000 workers at Leyland built 9,000 wheeled vehicles, 3,000 tanks, including the Cromwell, 10,000 tank engines, and a large quantity of munitions. The company also built the Centurion tank after the war ended. Leyland was not just a truck maker, it was a pillar of British industrial capacity. The post-war years brought confidence. Leyland expanded by buying other companies. In 1951, it acquired Albion Motors, the Scottish truck maker. In 1955, it bought Scammell, the specialist in heavy haulage and military vehicles. In 1962, it absorbed Associated Commercial Vehicles, which brought the famous AEC brand into the Leyland family. AEC trucks built in Southall in West London had their own distinguished history and their own loyal customers. In 1964, Leyland launched the Ergomatic cab, a tilting cab designed by the Italian styling house Michelotti. It tilted forward to expose the engine for maintenance, offered a quieter interior, and gave drivers better visibility. Fleet operators ordered in large numbers. By the mid-1960s, Leyland Motors was profitable, well-managed, and growing. Its trucks sold across the Commonwealth and into markets from Africa to South America. It was Britain's most successful commercial vehicle company. Then the government came calling. In 1968, Prime Minister Harold Wilson's government pushed Leyland Motors into a merger with British Motor Holdings, a struggling conglomerate of car brands including Austin, Morris, MG, and Jaguar. The merger was announced in January 1968 and legally took effect on May 14, 1968. The government's intention was to create a single, powerful British vehicle manufacturer capable of competing with the American and German giants. The new company was named the British Leyland Motor Corporation. Leyland, the profitable partner, was effectively asked to rescue British Motor Holdings, which was close to financial collapse at the time of the merger. For Leyland's truck operation, the merger was the beginning of a long descent. The new corporation contained nearly 100 different companies, 40 factories, and an almost impossible range of products to manage. Trucks, cars, buses, construction equipment, and refrigerators all sat under the same ownership. The priority of the new management, under Sir Donald Stokes, was to fix the failing car division. Cars sold in higher volumes and drew more public and political attention. The truck division, though profitable, was treated as a source of funds rather than a business to be developed. One account from an industry publication described the policy of the National Enterprise Board after nationalisation in 1975 directly. Truck profits were moved to support the car divisions. The people who had built Leyland's reputation on the road watched money flow away from their operation and into a car business that never recovered regardless. The truck division was starved of investment precisely when it needed it most. European rivals, Volvo from Sweden, Scania from Sweden, DAF from the Netherlands, Mercedes-Benz from Germany, were spending heavily on new cab designs, better engines, and improved driver comfort. Their trucks were moving ahead. Leyland's trucks were standing still. By the early 1970s, Leyland needed a new heavy truck urgently. Volvo had changed the expectations of British hauliers with its F86 and F88 range. These Swedish trucks offered levels of driver comfort, reliability, and performance that British products could not match. Hauliers who bought Volvos rarely went back to buying British. Leyland's response was the Marathon, launched in 1973. It was built around a reworked version of the ergomatic cab from 1965, raised and modified to compete in the maximum weight truck market. The engine was the TL12, a turbocharged six-cylinder unit derived from the old AEC 760. Management had pushed the Marathon into production too quickly. Engineers and development staff raised concerns about the braking system before production began. Those concerns were overruled. The early Marathon gained a poor reputation for its brakes. One operator's description, which circulated widely in the industry, was that the truck was called the Marathon because it only ran for 26 miles before something went wrong. The Marathon 2, launched in 1977, addressed most of the original's failings. It performed well. The TL12 engine, in its improved form, gained a strong reputation for durability, with some fleet operators reporting engine lives of over 350,000 miles without major overhaul. But the damage to customer confidence had already been done. The Marathon years confirmed to many British fleet buyers that Scandinavian trucks were the safer choice. Among the casualties of the British Leyland era was AEC. The Southall factory, which had produced trucks of world standing since before the First World War, was closed by British Leyland in 1979. The AEC name disappeared with it. Thornycroft was also shut. Guy Trucks at Wolverhampton closed in 1982. Scammell at Watford closed in 1988. One by one, the great names of British commercial vehicle manufacturing were extinguished, absorbed, and then discarded as the corporation tried to reduce costs. Each closure represented not just a factory, but a community, a supply chain, and decades of engineering knowledge. When AEC closed, its engineers scattered. That knowledge was not transferred to Leyland, it was lost. The T45 range, launched in 1980, was, by any technical measure, a genuinely good truck. The Road Train Tractor Unit won the 1981 International Truck of the Year title, announced in late 1980. The cab, known as the C40, was designed with direct input from drivers and fleet operators. It was aerodynamic, modern in appearance, and far easier to maintain than the trucks it replaced. The braking system, developed in partnership with Girling, was one of the best on the British market. The full T45 range covered most of the market, the road train for long-haul heavy work, the freighter for four-wheel rigid work, the constructor for tipping and mixer applications, the cruiser for lighter tractor work, and from September 1984, the Roadrunner for the growing 7.5-ton sector. The Roadrunner, in particular, reversed Leyland's declining share in the light truck market, doubling its presence from around 10% to over 20% within a few years of launch. But the T45 had arrived late. Plans for the range had been signed off in 1976, but investment delays caused by the broader British Leyland crisis pushed full production back to 1980 or 1981. While Leyland was finalizing its new truck, Volvo and DAF were already selling larger, more comfortable, and better equipped vehicles into Europe. The T45 cab, praised in the United Kingdom, was noticeably smaller and less refined than the cab-over designs coming from Gothenburg and Eindhoven. British hauliers accepted it. Continental buyers largely did not. The road train also suffered from a rust problem that damaged its reputation through the early 1980s. Models built after 1987 used galvanized panels, which resolved the issue, but by 1987, ownership of Leyland trucks had already changed. In February 1987, the government sold Leyland trucks to DAF of the Netherlands. The new combined operation traded as Leyland DAF in Britain and simply as DAF elsewhere in Europe. The irony was pointed. DAF had built much of its early reputation using Leyland engine technology under license during the 1950s. Now the student owned the teacher. For a brief period, the arrangement seemed to offer stability. The road train continued in production. The Roadrunner sold under the DAF badge in European markets. A new generation of trucks was planned. Then, in February 1993, DAF NV, the parent company, went into administration. The factories in the Netherlands closed. The future of the Leyland plant was uncertain for weeks. A group of managers at Leyland did not wait for a buyer to arrive. They organized a management buyout. In June 1993, Leyland Trucks Limited emerged as an independent British company. The workers kept their jobs. The factory kept running. The name Leyland survived. In June 1998, the American truck manufacturing company Paccar, which already owned the DAF brand in Europe, acquired Leyland Trucks. Under Paccar ownership, the Leyland plant became the global center for DAF's light and medium truck design and manufacture. The DAF LF, designed and assembled at Leyland, won the 2002 International Truck of the Year title, awarded in 2001. The DAF XF, assembled at Leyland in right-hand drive form, won the same award in 2007. Today, the Leyland plant covers 86 acres, employs around 1,000 people, and produces a minimum of 15,000 trucks per year. In 2008 alone, the factory built a record 24,700 vehicles. The facility that survived the British Leyland era, the management buyout, and 2 ownership changes is now one of the most efficient truck assembly plants in Europe. The story of Leyland Trucks inside British Leyland is the story of a strong company weakened by being placed inside a failing one. Its profits were redirected, its investment was withheld. Its engineers watched car division priorities consume money that should have built new trucks. The great names, AEC, Scammell, Guy, Thornycroft, did not survive. Leyland itself survived only because its own managers refused to let it close. The factory is still there. The trucks are still built, but the British names on the front are gone. The lesson is simple and hard. A profitable business inside a failing one rarely stays profitable for long.